The Strangers Chapter 1 is out, and there is a whirlwind of fan love and fan hate out there. And also, let's talk about everything that you need to know for the upcoming trilogy. Let's go. Let's get down to brass tacks. Guys, I'm going to touch upon everything that you need to know about the upcoming Strangers trilogy and also where I think this story might be headed in chapter 2 and 3. And I'm also going to touch upon what I think might be some really big issues with it if they make certain decisions. But first, let's get ready to talk about this. Comment down in the comment section down below. Let's talk about this as a fantastic movie community. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the Night Watch Zone. So The Strangers Chapter 1 is out, and there are some folks that really enjoyed it and some that were a bit disappointed. If you haven't already, check out my review on it and what my thoughts were right out of the theater. But let's get into this. So fans of the franchise are in for a treat with this upcoming trilogy, and all 3 movies have already been filmed. But the 2024 slasher definitely takes cues from the original predecessor from 2008. And what I found that was really interesting is that Renny Harlin was a big fan of that original movie as far as its tone and the brutality and all of the tension that it held throughout the entire runtime of that film. He was quoted as saying that his love for the 2008 film shaped his vision for his version. He said, "I remember the experience of seeing it," he told Entertainment Weekly in October of 2023. "I didn't really know anything about it when I saw it, and I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and it stuck in my mind as one of my favorite horror films." He continued saying, "When this opportunity came to me, the idea of not doing a remake or a reboot, but doing a trilogy based on the original film, I thought it was an incredible opportunity." Now, what I think is interesting about The Strangers Chapter 1 is it's not a straight remake. It's definitely not a reboot either. It's really weird because ultimately you're getting a sense of the story of the strangers before we saw the events of the original film. So this is one of the weirdest situations I might have ever seen with a franchise, because the first film had a beginning and it had an ending, and then you get to the second film and it feels as though it carries off of the first film, but it doesn't have super strong ties to it. And then of course the ending is pretty definitive. I thought the second film was great, Strangers Pray at Night. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. But with this film, it's like we're going back to elements of the first film, but maybe even before what we saw in the first film. So it almost has a little bit of a prequel vibe going on with it. It's just really odd. And I said this a little bit in my video, is I think that when I first heard that they were doing this, I was kind of scratching my head, but I do have a specific solution to that problem. And I talked about that in my Strangers Chapter 1 video. So check that out. The process of them finding Madeline Pesh to play the lead was a lengthy process, according to what Renny Harlin said. He said, "We looked long and hard for our Scream Queen. When we spoke with Madeline, I just knew that she was an exceptional person, an exceptional actor, and that's what it took to play this part. In the same way, after looking long and hard, we found Froy Gutierrez, who's another wonderful young actor. We wanted a couple who felt natural and relaxed together. Their relationship, maybe it's not identical to the relationship in the original film, but it's something that feels very natural and very real." And that to me was the key to this movie and this trilogy. It's the realism. Now, I will say that, I will say that this couple was really good together. These actors, I think they had pretty good chemistry, but it doesn't feel as though they are as realistic, maybe, as the original film with Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman. Now, I might just be a little biased to that original film, but honestly speaking, that original film, I think, was pretty special at the time. I had never really seen a movie with that type of tone and that type of bleakness when you're talking about home invasions. Even to this day, when I think of home invasion movies, The Strangers is the first movie that really pops up in my head, because that's straight what it's about. Um, and I think that's what also makes it very special. Now, as we were saying, the three movies they were filmed in Bratislava, Slovakia, which Harlan called the challenge of a lifetime for him. He said, I also really embraced it. On a Monday morning, I could be shooting the second chapter, and Monday afternoon, I could be shooting the first chapter, and Tuesday morning, I could be shooting the third chapter. It's incredibly demanding for the actors, for the continuity in terms of the makeup and the wardrobe, and for my director of photography because we wanted to create a visual language that develops so that the movies get bigger, more epic as we go on. It just kept all of our juices pumping all the time. Now, I think when you think about movies that are filmed at the same time, whether you're talking about Lord of the Rings or the Back to the Future sequels, it's interesting because I think that can be the challenge is trying to keep that continuity. And also, you have these characters that are carrying from one movie to the next, and how you keep all of that, but yet let those characters evolve, let them breathe. And I'm going to be really interested to see how chapter two carries this story on. When we get to the end of chapter one, there are definitely some loose ends, and you're wondering, okay, where can this go? There's familiarity at the end of chapter one if you've seen the first Strangers movie or even Pray at Night. And so it got me curious. And I think, if anything, maybe that is one of the best accomplishments of this first movie, this chapter one, is that it really got my mind working and thinking, okay, where are they gonna go with this? There were a lot of little seeds that Rennie Harlan planted in this first movie with different characters, let's say. And there's good in that, and there's also possible bad in that. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But of course, the original film, released in 2008, was a screenplay inspired by the infamous Manson family Tate murders from 1969, and also a series of break-ins that occurred at director and writer Brian Bertino's home when he was a child. Director Rennie Harlan also elaborated on their potential rollout plan, telling Variety that he expected Chapter 2 to be released in September or October of 2024, while the third film would come out in, quote, the beginning of next year in 2025. Now, here's the other part that I was so curious about when we first heard that this movie and this trilogy was going to be done, and of course with the trailer, even before I saw the movie, is what are we going to do with this film? Are we going to dive more into the backstory of the Strangers? Are we going to find out why they do what they do? Or we're going to find out who they are and kind of get into that mythology, which, I have a couple of different thoughts on that. And it's interesting because, as much as you're curious about it, do you want to really know? But in October of 2023, Rennie Harlan had confirmed the movies would reveal not only the killers' identities, but also their origin. So we're going to get everything. We're going to get the whole enchilada.
You got a description of plates?
I got the whole enchilada. It's a 77 orange Camaro, license number Mary William 8510.
In this trilogy, we're going to know everything we need to know about the Strangers, according to what the director said. Now, star Madeline Pesh had also made some interesting comments that really made me think about what's going to be happening in chapter 2 and also in chapter 3. She said that throughout every step of the next two films, it's just, quote, how is she going to get out of this terrorizing situation? And it's not necessarily all only home invasion, but they continue to invade her life in any way possible. Even in ways you don't think are possible. They're doing something fucked up. We really bend the rules a lot, which is fun. This is definitely an opportunity for the franchise to open up and do some things that we had not seen in the first film or Pray at Night, and also in chapter 1. And that I'm really excited about. I'm excited about the fact that Madeline was saying, hey, this isn't just going to be home invasion. There's a way that they are going to be invading her life. And I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with that. I'm hoping that it's going to be some really, really good plot moments and so forth. Rennie is really good as a visual director, and I'm hoping that he'll be able to really add more of his touch to it. Because again, chapter one had a lot of familiar beats that we saw in The Strangers and also in The Strangers Pray at Night. And I think that we're going to see that because he also said that the movies that they get more epic as we go, but without losing a sense of the claustrophobia and the dread and the tone, which is reality. He said, as a filmmaker, your instinct when you're doing an action movie is that bigger is better. In this one, my job was to rein myself in and always make sure that it's real. Many times, smaller was actually better. The most important thing is that the movies keep the sense of reality, but where we take the audience in the second and third movie is going to be very surprising. It's going to be interesting to see how everyone absorbs this first movie, and also if they're going to be ready, willing, and able to see what's going to happen in chapter two, and then, of course, in chapter three. I think that possibly two and three can be a lot better than chapter one. Part of that is just because, as Rennie was saying, we're going to be more surprised. They're going to do different things. It's not just going to be home invasion. And I do think that that's a smart aspect of what we, as horror fans, what we would want. But here's where I have the issue. This is where I think we can get into trouble. They're going to also not only reveal their identities, but the origin of the strangers. And if you saw chapter one, without getting into specific spoilers, you can kind of see how they were giving you little winks and nods, little hints. And although there's curiosity there for me, I rather not know everything as far as the strangers are concerned. I'd rather not know everything. And I think that that makes it scarier. That original film, what made that original film so fucking scary was the idea that anybody, anybody could put on that mask, have a weapon, whether it's an axe or a knife or what have you, and go to a place, invade that place, and terrorize and ultimately kill you. That to me was what made the original film, in my opinion, such a standout. And to this day, when I think of horror movies that I hold in high regard, The Strangers is definitely on that list. It was a moment in horror for me as a fan. So now with chapter 2 and 3 giving away all the little ins and outs as far as what these filmmakers want to do, although it can be interesting and there is some curiosity there, it doesn't outweigh the fact that I don't want to know everything, because I do want to have that fear, the fear of the unknown. It's very similar to other horror franchises where, as the movies go on, they usually kind of rubber band back to the beginning and create these mythologies and try and explore, untold lore of the villains, whether you look at Jason or Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers. And when you do that, and I've said this many times before, you get into potholes. You get into possible potholes because now you're sometimes humanizing these villains so much that you lose some of the fear. You lose some of what made them so effective as a villain. So we'll have to see how they handle it. I hope that they can balance it out, give us some things, but hopefully not everything. I'd love to have some mystery there, but I don't necessarily think that's going to happen, because Rennie Harlan said there will be no unanswered questions. And I know that that's a take that some folks, and maybe some of you guys watching, you're on board with that, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If it's executed the right way, then that'll be fine. That'll be fine. It's all about how they execute it and how they tell the story of what these strangers are all about, why they're doing it, who they are, and who they might be linked to. I'll just say that. What was really interesting also, as far as getting to know everything that we can about this trilogy, is that Rennie Harlan said that there is a potential 4.5-hour cut, a director's cut of the films. He said that it's in our heads. It's definitely something that we want to do. We want to cut together the full arc. We know exactly how to do it. Then we'll create a movie and see Who are those diehard fans who will come to the theater for 4.5 hours? I don't know if we need to have an intermission so people can get some food and go to the bathroom, but I definitely want to have that event, see if people take 4.5 hours of dread and fear and terror and despair. And let me just tell you something. I appreciate Rennie, thinking of different ways to put the franchise out there and trying to do some new things. But 4.5 hours, man, that's a long haul. And I think it really depends on how the movies mesh together. They were filmed together, so I'm assuming that there'll be this even type of rhythm to the films. I hope it is. I would be curious to see it, but I don't know if I'd go to a theater to see it. The chapter 2 and chapter 3 will really have to wow me for me to even consider that. You guys tell me what you think in the comments. Would you want to see a 4.5 hour cut of all three films together? And definitely, how many bathroom breaks will you need? But anyways, guys, this is all that we know so far about this trilogy. And again, this chapter 1 was one of the films that I was really looking forward to most this year. A little bit out of curiosity, but also because of my love of the first two films. And it's going to be interesting to see where this thing goes. So obviously, in a couple months, we'll probably be getting chapter 2, and then early next year, we'll be getting chapter 3. Who knows what's going to happen? Let's talk about it in the comment section down below. Don't forget to hit the like button. It helps to support the channel, and I'd appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the Night Watch Zone, this is the time to do it. Do it and join this fantastic movie community. And if you like this video, check out my review of The Strangers Chapter 1 and many, many other movie reviews. And I'll catch you guys later. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you are the Night Watch. Peace.